not really an opening statement guy, but I will open with this statement. I'm fired up to be here. Family's fired up to be here, and shoot from the hip with whatever questions you got.
Mike, just to start out, what attracted you about this job?
There was a lot that I found very attractive. I was very fortunate to have some opportunities, but I think it started with Coach Harbaugh. Then to be a part of an organization that has a legacy. Talking about Sid and Eric Coryell, that's super attractive too. Got a quarterback who I've always admired, and just a lot of young players. Great situation for me and my family to go to the next chapter, which we're very excited about.
You mentioned the quarterback. What has impressed you about Justin Herbert throughout his career so far?
Well, I think you have a competitive player that each and every year is trying to get better at his craft. I think he hasn't scratched he hasn't neared the ceiling to what he's capable of. He can make every throw, but as a competitor, you can tell he enjoys what the National Football League and franchise quarterback. He enjoys all the burden that is the responsibility of touching the ball every play, then to need to be your best when your best is required. That's something that I'm always looking for in players in general. How they perform post halftime, and there's a lot that we can be capable of here. With him leading the charge, so extremely excited for that opportunity.
When you look at the offense, how do you see you being able to elevate them regular season, postseason?
Well, I think it's a real cool opportunity because I think the best offenses are cater to the players that they have, the existing skill sets, and evolve to what their talents are. I think we have a lot of young players at the skill positions, particularly. Got two great tackles coming back, and I think with a skill set such as Justin's, you can do a lot of things on the ground and in the air that can really put defenses in bind. So I think there's a lot of tools in place. I think it's important to have a good off season, which we plan to do, and I think what you're working with is something that will be unique to its own. I'm excited for to see where the offense goes and how it evolves through the skill sets of these players, and what I think the biggest thing is we want to create a system of offense where guys can really feature their skill sets, evolve their game, and be their best in December and January, which is the whole point when you're playing elimination games, and you're whether you're playing to get into the playoffs or you're in the playoffs, we're going to have an offense that evolves to the point that our most efficient self and our best self will be then with these young players we have here.
What's the process been like for you since Miami, going through when you left Miami and you thought about where you'd be next? Was this at the top of the list, or how did you get to this point?
I think it was a very interesting process. It was unique to my career in that there was a lot of opportunities out there, and I thought it was important to not get ahead of myself and to take each opportunity, fully digest it, and I figured when I'd come to the place that there would be a certain feeling attached in your gut that that, hey, I don't want to leave this place and this opportunity. So it was a hectic week for sure. That first week after I left Miami, and in that process, I think it was a week and a half in that I came here, and I hadn't overthought it at all. I really just kept a clear mind at each opportunity, had heard all the things that each organization had to say, and assessed each and every option, and then got here with meeting Mr. Spanos and having time with Jim and Joe. It didn't take long for me to have feet on the ground, to feel this is kind of what I was looking for. You just want to be a part of a hungry organization with like-minded football people that are doing anything and everything to win. And for me, the opportunity to work with Coach Harbaugh, and that was too good to pass up. It felt like I was extremely fortunate to be afforded this opportunity, and it felt something that I could easily get behind in terms of ambition to go attack the next thing. So those things, coupled with the spirited attitude of my daughter and my wife, made things pretty easy as a girl dad and a husband, to have your family in a place where they can get behind too.
Mike, have you spoken to Justin?
Yes,
What was that
about a week
conversation?
ago. Well, I think it was good for me. You'd have to ask him if it was good for him. I'm pretty sure it went well. He was in high spirits, just excited about attacking something. You lose in the playoffs in the first round, and it's a lot of work that you feel kind of like you have an empty stomach. So that hunger, I could hear it in his voice. He was excited to start a new chapter and to really attack the process of the off season to be our best versions of ourselves come next fall. So it was enthusiastic. I was in a room talking with a really loud inside voice, out of passion, and I think he recognized that, and we were both geeks for the future and the possibilities that it brings.
That play that he had against you guys in
Yeah.
the past, Lad McConkey, just
Yeah.
what did you think about?
That's what I knew. What I think about it, I think, I've been in the National Football League for 19 years. In that process, you are fortunate to share the field with guys that can just, in an 11-on-11 game, they can really take over and put the team on their back. And that was the latest and greatest example of that on the short end of the stick. So I think that's what's so exciting about the horizon. What we have in store for ourselves moving forward is it's rare that you can come up with football plays that has an answer if the defense gets paid to and they make the perfect call. I think not relying too heavily on Justin's ability to do above and beyond, I think is critical to maximize those types of opportunities. That'll be one of the first things that we'll try to do is take a little off his plate so that he is free to do that when his greatness is required. So I think there's probably a plethora of examples you guys can go in your Rolodex as far as plays that he's made that you assume others can't. In those situations where you're on the sidelines and you're playing against it, it's a lonely feeling when there isn't a play call defensively that can take this guy's game away. So if you can't beat him, join him, I guess.
You've obviously observed Justin mostly from afar, outside of the conversation you were just speaking of. Big part of this process is going to be getting to know him, what he likes, what he doesn't like, how he operates. What are you most interested in learning about Justin as you get to know him over the next few months?
Well, I think that's one of my favorite parts of starting anew is I try to take in a similar fashion that I approached my last new job, where you let the tape take you to your own conclusions. You deep dive, 3, 4, and his case will be about 4 to 5 seasons of watching all of his play, kind of patternizing things that he doesn't necessarily tell me he can confirm verbally, but I like to draw the conclusions from the tape itself. As a student, kind of removed too much from anything but just execution. Then you go through that, and it's a reverse engineer problem solving formula that you find ways to best suit some of the things that he does best. As you're learning a new offense, it's key to have a quarterback maintain confidence in his craft, you can find that by making sure that some of the best things that he's had the most success with, for years, I think making sure those are part of the install process, just really problem solving, all sorts of verbiage, all sorts of things. But it's really exciting because, for instance, the concept, the RPO that we ran the most, or really Tua's most run play in Miami, was a play that I'd never run previous. That was kind of part of that process that I think is important to meshing an offense to the skill sets of the players, particularly the best players, which in this case, and what every offensive coach would like is to have their best player be the quarterback because they touch the ball every play. So it's an exciting time. I think the biggest thing is that you have people with the appropriate intent attacking a problem, hungry at where football can go, and not satisfied with anything in the past. That's the biggest thing. So I'm excited to get to work on all of that, starting with this press conference.
Mike, you mentioned Coach Harbaugh a couple times. What have you admired about him from afar as a coach, and then what's the last couple days been like working with him up close?
I think winning and adaptation, I would say, are the two things that just pop off. It's hard to have success in football, particularly the National Football League, or I'm sure when you're leading a gigantic program such as Coach Harbaugh did with Michigan. It feels the same as the National Football League. You have all these problems to solve, and to have success over time, that means there's an adaptability that I think is super important in life in general, but particularly the state of where football is, and how you have to evolve to keep a competitive edge. I think I always admire, being in the profession of coaching. You can see when players are better served with the time spent with a coach. When you can tell that you make a difference in their lives, who they are as people. Those things are why you get into coaching, and there's only a certain amount of people that are actually able to execute that and capture that. So Coach Harbaugh has done that over an extended period of time. Multiple times I've been on the losing side of it, and I've been able to feel, what his teams play like in 2011 versus what they play like in 2025, and that consistency and commonality with those teams over that vastly different period of time, I think speaks to who he is and his bottom lines and where his compass is and his direction and everything that he does, where it comes from. So, I think selfishly, I think the end result will be me being a better coach, better father, and a better husband. And I think those things work hand in hand to how you're executing professionally.
Coach, we talk about new voices that come into a locker room. What kind of a new voice do you want to be?
The loudest. The loudest voice. I think you just want to add value. You want to bring stuff out of people that maybe they are aware that they have inside of them. Maybe sometimes they aren't. I like to come to work and impact people, not off what I've done in the past or what I'm going to do in the future. I like to impact that day. So I've always kind of attacked life in that manner, and I think people are inspired by that. In team sports, to be a part of somebody, each individual or the collective, they kind of work hand in hand, but to be a part of a journey where they get better and you're a part of that's what my appetite is, and that's what I was very, very confident I could supremely capture here in a one-bolt way. Is that right?
Yeah.
Nice.
Mike,
Nailed it.
you mentioned, Mike, that you wanted to slow down the process of not pursuing head coaching opportunities. Is that difficult not to do? And then also, do you want to be head coach soon as possible, or you're not even thinking about that right now?
No, I think, absolutely my end goal of, being able to bring championships to an organization as a head coach, that still is in place, but I think it's super important in life to be where your feet are and kind of attack, whatever challenge. This was uncharted territory for me, where I had, some options to kind of, assess and evaluate. And in that process, you kind of learn, it kind of forces you to see where you're at and what's most important to you. And I want to be part of, a hungry, collective group of individuals to push forward, utilize, what I have to offer, and, have a place get better because, I can contribute to it. Within that, there was jobs that, it wasn't easy, but when I was assessing this opportunity versus, some potential head coaching opportunities, I think it spoke to how, what this opportunity really provided me, because it wasn't that difficult, once I got to meet the nucleus of the organization, and put all the pieces together. So, I don't think my long vision has changed, but I very much, am firmly where my feet are right now, which is being the offensive coordinator for the Los Angeles Chargers, and being the very best at that. And typically, if you approach things that way, kind of put your blinders on, put your noise canceling headphones on in the world, you end up liking the product that creates. So I'm focused on this. This is an unbelievable opportunity that I'm happy to go seize and work with a bunch of like-minded people to go win some more football games and really take advantage of all the human talent on the field and off the field that this organization has.
You mentioned like-minded a couple times when talking about people in the organization and Jim. In your conversation so far, where is that overlap philosophically, schematically, in terms of football?
Well, he likes to run the ball, and I am, by trade, I spent a good portion of my career, being in charge of the run game and being a run game coordinator. I think you're always playing to your skill sets, and each team that you're on has a different array of them. I think some of our my run game prowess in the past has been finding different solutions for light boxes when you're adept to pass, to run the ball. That core foundational belief of football is inside out, and prioritizing the line of scrimmage play and being able to win games when you have a lead with 9 minutes to go in the game, and you can keep the defense off the field. I think those types of things, that's where the like-minded football 101 core values of football kind of overlap. And then I think Jim appreciates the evolution of the game and how you can different ways that you can try to attack how people are defending you, and that's always evolving, and that hunger and thirst for that is something that I've always had in my back pocket, pushing me forward.
Like, what do you think you learned about yourself in the way that Miami ended?
You learn a ton. You have press conferences like this 4 times a week, and they don't just have them when things are going good. And you have a locker room, and you have there's just a lot of problems. I tried to put myself in the position of being a head coach well before I was a head coach, and I was as prepared as I could be. But you can't prepare for all the things that come at you. For me, it's really exciting because you know, you're still standing here, it didn't kill you, and all the tough things that you have been through end up working in your favor as you move forward as a coach and as a man. So not all the things that you deal with as a head coach, particularly, you know, for my tenure in the last 4 years in Miami, it wasn't all rosy, but the results and what you kind of get from them can be for, you know, you chasing your finding your best self as you move forward. I think I'm very, very grateful for all the players and the entire organization. And, you know, I think it became clear in the whole process that was you know, that transition was for something greater that lies ahead. So I'll take all those lessons and apply them as I move forward in a very productive way.
Your last 2 years, first 2 years, offense was booming. Last 2 years, the offense regressed. Like, what do you make of the final 2 years, the way the offense performed, and what did you learn from that?
Well, I think you know, it facilitated itself. You know, when I had options that, you know, moving on from my last job, and you know, some of that was a driving force. Those experiences, you know, I think, you know, one thing that football's a humbling game, and regardless of how good you are, you know, as a coach, I think the true, you know, we really dealt with some injury issues with Tua the year previous, and I think it really pulled into focus how important the quarterback is to your overall effectiveness as a coach and as a team. You know, I think there's a lot of things that you're doing from a head coach's perspective when you're, you know, calling plays as a play caller that has to do with your offense, defense, and special teams. You know, and I think it really narrowed my focus as an offensive coordinator. What are the things that you know, I need in place to make sure that the offense can continue to grow around different players and keep a competitive advantage over you know, your opponents, your division rivals, the people in your conference, and really all the teams in the NFC. So I think there was a lot that I learned that I'm super excited to apply in this job, this opportunity, in this organization.
Mike, one of the issues here last year was Justin Herbert got hit and pressured at a high rate. Just what is your view on what the offensive line is going to look like under you? And two, do you have somebody in mind for the offensive line coach?
Yeah, you know, working through that staff process right now, but there's you know, definitely targeted individuals that, you know, we're working through to work with. I think it's paramount on, you know, from a schematic perspective, you're trying to make sure that your quarterback is able to sustain 16, 17 games season now. And within that, you're trying to make sure that you have a coordinated execution to keep him upright, to keep him from getting hit, to be able to have completions that are a little less or a little more low cost, that you can get the ball out quicker, tying that to scheme, you know, being very detailed with our blockers and where our launch point is at, is something that I've always prioritized when coming up with you know, offense in general. So I think you never stray from that. I think, you know, kind of the way that over my course of time in the National Football League, all those years were within the same system that you're kind of evolving to your individual players. But a common denominator through all of those is how to make sure that your quarterback can be healthy and not be in vulnerable position too often. Has an incredible ability to do off schedule. You know, I think I'll be firmly coaching away from the off schedule stuff at the front end, because, you know, he can always go back to that comfort zone as you working on other things. So I think a primary focus on how to have offense without putting him in a vulnerable position will be a starting point, and we'll extrapolate from there.
Are there any other changes to the staff, offensive staff?
Yeah, we're still looking at it. It's early, but going through each and every coach and making sure it's the right fit for where we're moving forward.
You said earlier that you want to take, one of your focuses, you want to take some stuff off of Justin's plate to make it easier for him. Can you just like explain what you mean by that?
So there's a lot of incredible plays that Justin has made. He's firmly capable, and sometimes as a coach, you can rely upon that a little too much. There's schematic ways to get completions that maybe all three quarterbacks on your roster would be capable of doing. Easier completions, kind of not putting so much. It can be taxing over time for a player to necessitate an incredible play too often to be able to score points and win football games. So you try to take it off of him by creating some low cost, high reward offense that he's firmly capable of doing, but maybe a player of lesser talent would be capable of doing as well.
What does that look like in practice? If you have like an example, not to ask you to share what you're gonna do now. Something maybe you've done in the past. Like, what does that look like in practice?
It looks like the offense is working. Honestly, maybe the time for the ball to come out. The overall average, he's still going to be able to pump the ball down the field. You got to use the cannon that he has as an arm, but maybe having some quicker ball out passes at a higher frequency. So much of the National Football League defense is post snap. They want to hide the picture from the quarterback pre-snap. To do that, they give pre-snap space. You can take advantage of this of that space with quick throws and getting the ball in and out. Where the pass rush, one of the best blockers that you can have is an open, eligible number one in a quick amount of time. There's even the best pass rushers, it takes time to beat offensive linemen. If you beat pass rush with a throw, it can frustrate opponents. It can get pass rushers to take chances and void gaps that Justin can. He's also really fast, so if you void pass rush lanes and abandon them early because of frustration because you get the ball out too quick, that can his skill sets afford you ways to make people pay in that way as well. So I would say some quicker completions. We'll still pump the ball down the field, but having that at your disposal can really help quarterback and can help pass protection.